Likely nobody had this on their bingo cards coming into 2025. A podcast where the rosary is prayed has now taken the absolute top spot in all social media podcasts, even dethroning Joe Rogan.
I don't know what it was like when you grew up, but when I was growing up, the rosary was literally only something that my little old Italian grandmother did. It wasn't something that we ever did in church. It wasn't something we ever did in CCD or catechism classes. So why are people now of all ages praying the rosary?
Yeah, and I think the rosary certainly is experiencing like a new springtime. It's coming back, and I think it's kind of a perfect human prayer. It's just so clear. It's so accessible. You can do it if you're like 6 or 8 years old. They're teaching kids it. You can do it if you're my like 80 or 90-year-old grandmother. It's just so clear, and it's so well formed, and it's so human. I think it just resonates with everybody. And we're looking for guidance, and the rosary is just a very clear guide on prayer.
Yeah, even a story on Fox News. All across America, there seems to be little, maybe not so little, indications that God is being made room for again, and that Catholics seem to be leading the charge here in the U.S. Trump won 60% of the Catholic vote. His cabinet and inner circle is dotted with believing Catholics, not just the Biden-Pelosi version of phony Catholics. Hardly a week goes by where we don't hear of either another high-profile conversion or a big name saying they seem to be warming up to Catholicism. The nation's Catholic seminaries are now largely populated by serious, faithful, that's the point, faithful young men who utterly reject the social justice, anti-doctrinal madness of the past 60 years. Many of the loathsome men in mitres and their chancery henchmen who seemingly made it their mission to refashion the church in their own image, well, they're dying off. That usually happens. Or they're aging out. That usually happens too. Their view of the church is being tossed onto the ash heap of history, not a moment too soon, thank God. What seems to be unfolding is a renewal by the Holy Spirit, who the incarnate eternal Logos promised he would send to his church and who would lead it to all truth. It's not a new Pentecost because there was only one, but there definitely seems to be a reinvigoration of that original Pentecost, as happened many times in the last 2,000 years. Christ himself established the Catholic Church and gave her his power and authority to preach, heal, and forgive sins, to always keep open the portal for men to look for and pass through for salvation. Salvation is, after all, it's a process. It's a process for each one of us, not a one-time emotion-laden event. As St. Paul assures us, work out your salvation and fear and trembling. And again, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now the victor's crown awaits me. Even Christ himself says in the Apocalypse, only those who persevere to the end will be saved. Think of his parable of the farmer sowing the seeds. Some of the seed actually did take root and begin to grow, but then was choked off or burned by the burning, scorching heat of the sun. Christ founded and lives within his Catholic Church so that while we still have air in our lungs, we may have access to him intellectually, emotionally, and sacramentally. We are body and soul, and each dynamic needs saving. A great movement seems to be happening, and ultimately it's yet another revelation of God's love and desire for union with his most treasured creation. That's us.